Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me 2, Eric's Route, Part 2. So yeah, we're gonna go train with Faye now. I reported to the Grand Hall. Apparently, it was strictly to be used for Sarah and Diana, but since training me for defense became a priority, I was given the room along with my trainer of choice, Faye. I didn't know what made me choose Faye. They were indeed a wild-card choice. Who knew what I would learn from them? They were obviously a fairy, but what kind of abilities did fairies have in this world? I could tell that they were nothing like the fairies in fantasy fairy tales, so the idea of learning about them became a tantalizing curiosity within me. As I arrived, I saw Faye flutter about the room, wowed at the space they were given to train me.
Whoa! This room is so huge! How the heck did we get this room? When did the castle even have this room? Holy crap!
I take it she doesn't mean they, I'm so sorry. They, don't get, I've never been able to use this room before, so okay. I giggled and stepped in, watching as the fairy flew to and fro from one side of the room to the other in excitement. Hopefully they wouldn't be too distracted by the size of the room to train me. Hey, Faye. Faye at last turned to me with a large grin and flew close to me, placing their hands behind their back.
Hiya! You ready to learn some cool tricks from a cool demon like me?
I smiled. I had picked a good trainer. Nodding, I pressed my hands on my hips. Absolutely, I'm ready. Faye grinned before floating over the far end of the room, cupping their hands together and calling out for me. To me.
Come over here!
I tilted my head confused a bit, but shrugged and ran forward, eventually stopping at Faye's side. They clapped in applause, which made me a bit more confused, but I bowed to them, amused.
Alrighty! Now, race it to the other side!
Oh, okay, I'm just tired. Wait, what? Before I could question Faye, the reel back and zipped around the room towards the far wall. I rushed behind, trying to catch up, but didn't make it in time to beat Faye from touching the wall.
I win!
Because you didn't warn me this was gonna be a race. Faye looked at me confused before rubbing their head.
But this is training! Aren't I supposed to teach you how to be fast and dodgy and stuff?
I suddenly realized what I had gotten myself into. Faye had no idea what they were doing. Ooh. No. A figure who was standing in the corner watching the whole event stepped out of the shadows, slightly surprising me as he walked up to Faye.
Boss, I think you should be teaching a human how to defend herself. Just saying.
Faye turned around and flailed their arms at the figure.
Terminus! Don't tell me what to do! I can do this!
Eternimus let out a snort with an amused smirk, crossing his arms at his apparent boss, and shrugged.
Alright, whatever you say. I was just making a suggestion.
Faye puffed out their cheeks at Eternimus before turning back to me. I became concerned. Would I be able to learn about anything from Faye other than racing? I'm gonna keep trying. Get out of Dodge. Stay and try. I took a moment to take a deep breath and let it out. Who knew what Faye had in store? Maybe they'd teach me how to grow wings or become small. Their abilities could be pretty useful, especially the wings. Faye pressed a finger to their chin before suddenly getting an idea.
I know! I can teach you a really cool attack!
I suddenly became excited. An attack? I knew the training was meant for my self-defense, but having an offensive attack would prove to be very useful in the war I was essentially about to jump into. They grinned at me before turning to the open space, holding their hands out, closing their eyes and focusing their energy. I watched as a green orb slowly appeared before their palms, growing in size until it became the size of a baseball. They opened their eyes and gripped it with both hands, looking at me with a grin.
This is called the thorn bush.
Thorn bush? Faye nodded ecstatically before arcing their hands back behind their head and chucking the orb forward into space. As it impacted the ground, the orb popped like a bubble and released a cloud of green gas that covered a large portion of the floor. The gas quickly began to materialize into a web of thorny branches, stretching out over the floor and stopping just before where Faye and I stood. The branches continued to sway in the air as if they were alive. Whoa! I was absolutely astonished. This seemed like a really cool trap, but was it effective? I turned my gaze to Faye to see them look to Eternimus with a smug expression.
Hey, Eternimus! Try and walk through it.
Man, he was just their scapegoat. Yeah. With an amused grin and roll of his eyes, Eternimus summoned his spear and walked forward into the area where the bush had made claim. I watched in curiosity, wondering what the thorn bush would do. I gasped as the branches closest to Eternimus began to lash out and strike at him, only to be blocked and cut down by his spear. With a concentrated expression, Eternimus began to cut through the bush, driving it back slowly but surely. While I understood that he knew about how to deflect Faye's trap, it was an interesting spell nonetheless. If anything, it was able to slow down enemies and attack them as I went on. A good distraction. As Eternimus reached the center, he rammed his spear into the spot where the bush sprouted from, causing the branches around him to wither and die, fading into the air like they were never there. Wow. That was pretty cool. I had to admit it looked really cool even to the end. It was very effective and I was going to learn it. Go me! Faye turned and smiled at me, bobbing a bit in the air in excitement.
Isn't it? It's one of my favorite trap spells. What's even cooler is that if you throw it at a person, they'll be covered in thorns and won't be able to fight back!
Ah, okay. That was a game changer. I stared at Faye shocked. It really could do stuff like that? Then again, there wasn't really a good way to test it because none of us wanted to be the receiving end of that spell, and there was no training dummies in the room. I had to take their word for it. Faye grinned before crossing their legs and sitting in the air, pondering.
What else to show you?
Eternimus looked over and shook his head, walking back to his corner.
Make the human try what you just did first before showing us something new.
All right!
Faye looked over to me and waved their hands out in the room, gesturing me to do what they did. It was mildly adorable to see them do that, but I shook my thoughts out and focused on trying to replicate what Faye did. I looked to my hands, trying to focus on forming the green orb in my hands. I began to imagine it, hoping it would spark my energy to perform the spell. But I found that imagination wouldn't work, or at least wasn't enough. I glared at the back of my hands, trying to figure it out. Faye floated beside me and looked at my hands as well, tapping their chin.
Maybe if you squint really hard or something.
Faye. I turned my head to Faye, not wanting to be a bad student, but needing the teacher to actually teach me. Faye floated back a bit and placing their hands in front of them by their chest.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's like,
Like what?
Well, I mean, you're a human, and I don't exactly know if you have magic and stuff, like,
Faye wiggled their arms beside them, flailing a bit before flying around me and scratching their head.
Like, brute demons have, like, rage energy to battle, and then Diana has her ooh-la-la kind of sexual energy or whatever to power her powers. But for me, it just comes naturally, you know? I just think about it, and poof! It happens! But I'm a demon, so it's supposed to happen.
Oh. I nodded, understanding what they meant, but I pressed forward, knowing humans could perform magic if they wanted to. We had energy too, after all. Well, can you show it to me again, or maybe do it with me or something? Faye tapped their chin, listening to me before nodding and turning to the side. They pointed their hands out and focused on their fingers, which caused me to turn and do the same. I stared at Faye as Faye took a breath and mimicked them perfectly. I was going to do this one way or another. I looked to my hands and tried to focus one more time. I tried to imagine my energy flowing into my hands and forming the green orb, hoping it would spur the action to happen. Come on. Finally, something in my mind clicked. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing, feeling the air flow through my body. I began to mentally scour my body, taking note of the inhales and exhales I released before figuring it out. I concentrated on the air in my body, imagining it to be like the energy I imagined myself to have. Like that, I felt very faint waves pulse through my body, confirming that I indeed had energy to use, and a lot of it. I smelled and looked to my hands again, knowing and feeling the energy within me, before committing to call it forward like a green orb. Obediently, my energy began to flow into my hands, making them glow lightly before forming a orb just in front of my palms. It began to pulse and grow in size, making Faye look over and gasp.
Holy crap, you're doing it! You're doing it!
I grinned from ear to ear as I continued to focus on the orb. Once it became the size of both my hands, I grasped onto it and pulled it over my head before chucking it into the empty room. Just like Faye's orb, mine popped once it crashed into the floor and formed a large strings and lines of thorny branches, waving creepily in the air and releasing a threatening appearance. I couldn't have been prouder of myself. They zipped through the air happily, punching their fists into the air.
Yeah! You did it!
I couldn't help but jump a bit as well. It was tough, but I managed to pull it off. I felt a slight tingle in my hands and arms from using energy, but I didn't mind. Faye finally floated over to me and grabbed my hands, shaking them in joy.
We're gonna have so much fun training!
I guess I don't have to ask if everything is okay in here.
Faye and I turned our heads to see Diana leaning against the doorway with a small smirk. I smiled a bit and nodded, looking to the magic I had performed that was still wriggling in the center of the room. Faye released my hands and flew over to Diana, grabbing the succubus's hands and pulling her into the room.
Whoa!
Look! Isn't it so impressive? It's the second best spell I know and she mastered it!
Wait, what? I stared at Faye in shock. This was their second best spell? They really trusted me to learn it, and it was the second best? What was the first? And what was the last? Diana observed the branch monster I had essentially summoned and nodded with a chuckle.
I told you, she's a powerhouse of energy. I'm not surprised that she could pull this off.
I felt a bit flattered that Diana believed in me, but Faye flew around Diana and flipped the succubus's hair, making Diana jump a bit and glare at the flying demon.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me that she was awesome!
Diana chuckled a bit before letting out a sigh with a shake of her head.
I'll leave you be then. Have fun, dears.
Faye was grinning from ear to ear as Diana turned to her on her heel and walked away. As soon as she left the room, Faye spun around me and lifted themselves higher and higher into the air.
Alrighty, let's make you the master of the thorn bush.
I laughed and felt excitement rush through my veins. This is going to be fun. I wish I had learned like ice magic, that'd be cool. We spent the entire day focusing on how to make the spell happen quicker, faster, and become more naturally to me. I left exhausted but thrilled at what I was now able to do. I fell onto my bed, exhausted. My body felt completely at the mercy of the fluffy mattress beneath me. Today was rough. Luckily, before I came back to the room, I had been shown bathrooms where I could relieve myself and bathe properly. At least hygiene wouldn't be an issue. Are you telling me that the other two we did, like, they didn't mention bathrooms, and this one they did? Oh, okay. I'm just gonna keep that in the back of my mind. I had bathed in crystal clear water before returning to my room and flopping onto the bed like a bum. Okay. I heard the door open and close, followed by the soft patterns of labored footsteps, walking around the bed and stopping on the other side. I knew it was Erik, but I turned my head to verify my guess. I was correct. However, I felt my face flush at the sight. Erik was shirtless and his skin was beautifully covered in water droplets. His hair was damp and his breathing was labored. He must have trained hard, if not harder than me at least, and bathed right afterward. Hi.
Good evening, love.
I could tell that he wanted to flop onto the bed and simply pass out, but something held him back. I tilted my head at him, making Erik smile.
I'm going over what happened today.
Don't mind my stomach. I haven't eaten breakfast, but I'm gonna get this done before then. And?
Do you feel disgusted by me?
No. I kept my eyes on Erik, letting my mind wander a bit over him. I still loved him and didn't feel the need to yell at him or push him away. I had to assume the spirit was still resting from Sarah's attack. Nope. Erik nodded before climbing into bed and leaning back against the bedpost. Cuddle with him. I settled close to him and placed my head on his shoulder. Erik smiled and wrapped an arm around me, holding me close.
It's been a long while since I've trained like that.
Since Malik's, right? Erik nodded with a smile at me. I remembered Malik's, the damnable monster. He had wanted to kill the boys and even kidnap me as bait. Luckily, he didn't last long. During the time he was around, though, Erik had trained hard and done the best he could. I was kind of proud to see him going at it again. I yawned and got ready for bed. There was no use in prolonging sleep. The darkness welcomed me in its embrace as Erik wrapped his arms around me protectively. Huh? The cries of the spirit vibrated through my mind. I knew Erik would take a bit to enter my dreams, but I could only look around as the sound of the spirit whimpered echoed around me in the dark. Hello?
Go away!
Finally, the orb appeared. It wasn't bobbing up and down in the air like it usually had before. It was on the ground, like a ball. I walked over and crouched before sitting down in front of it. The sound of its whimpers made my heart hurt. Did Sarah's attack really hurt it that badly? Even more than that, it was apparently a child. Oh man. Oh man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm so scared, I don't want to. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I winced a bit at its words. I was trying to be sincere, but I had to assume the spirit was too hurt to care.
Why did you do that?
He just wanted to try and get you out of my body.
Why did you hurt me?
Every word the spirit spoke felt like a knife through my heart. I didn't mean to hurt it, but we had to try. I was certain the intention of the attack was to expel the spirit, not hurt it.
You're just like him.
Like him? You mean Erik?
No. The evil man.
Evil man? I stared at the spirit, gently lifted itself off the ground, and began to slowly bob up and down in front of me.
The evil man that killed me.
Is that gonna be the Demon Lord? Is that the connection? Yeah. Aww. My body froze as I suddenly heard the Demon Lord's laughter all around me. The voice bounced through the air, sending waves upon wave of fear through my body in an endless cycle. However, the spirit didn't react. Was the spirit causing the voice? The spirit lowered itself back onto the ground and laid still, the purple aura around it still rippling around it.
You're gonna hurt me again.
No, I won't. I didn't want it to be hurt. Expelling it was one thing, causing it pain was another. There had to be some way to force it without hurting it any more than we already did. I hope I didn't choose wrong. I felt a hand suddenly place itself on my shoulder, and the Demon Lord's voice faded into silence. I quickly turned to see Erik, looking down at me with this concerned expression.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
The icky man is back.
Erik ignored the spirit and gently turned my body to face him.
Don't listen to whatever that spirit says. We'll expel it soon enough.
You don't care about her. You just care about babies.
Oh. I stared as, instinctively, Erik summoned his tendrils, ready to attack, but his expression melted into concern. Something was holding him back, and it made me a bit worried. Was the spirit telling the truth? The spirit simply faded into the dark without continuing the conflict, leaving us alone. Erik?
Yes, my princess?
I don't know. I think we should be honest. Okay, here we go. Do you want me to be pregnant? I had to know. He reacted so violently towards the spirit at the mention of children. Erik's face, however, contorted from the concern and melted into a look of confusion.
Where is this coming from?
I just want to know. Erik sighed and nodded, making a small lump in my stomach harden. He really wanted me to be pregnant? Before I could speak, though, Erik raised his head with a kind and soft smile.
I would be happy to have you bear my children and for you to be a wonderful mother, but not unless you want to. You would be the one bearing the burden the longest.
My heart skipped multiple beats. I was shocked at his words. Erik continued.
In the demon world, it is a regular occurrence for incubi and succubi to breed as often as possible. It's only natural that I'd want children, princess. However, you are a human, and even more so, you are the one I love. I obey your every command.
Before my eyes, Erik slowly wrapped his arms around my form and kissed my forehead. The warmth of his embrace made my entire body melt, but I wrapped my arms around him in return.
We're not even married yet. We can probably wait until after we say our vows before we think about children.
A small laugh erupted from me as I nuzzled Erik's chest. He was right. We didn't have to think about it now. I shouldn't have let the idea get to me. Right. I nodded in reply, just wanting to completely immerse myself in Erik's arms. The night passed by and morning rose. To my surprise, I woke up alone. I scanned the room for Erik, but found myself in the room by myself. Erik?
He left to go train with his brothers, sweetie.
I turned my head to the sound of Diana's voice. The door was open at Diana standing in the archway holding a tray of pancakes. My stomach growled at the sight, but something in my heart felt giddy as well as seeing Diana with food.
Here, something warm today.
Thank you. Diana passed me the plate as I began to eat. I knew that I had to work hard myself today, so I needed all the energy I could get. Diana, however, watched me as I ate. As her gaze got the better of my nerves, I looked to her with a confused look. What?
Do you know the child that's in your body?
I shook my head, making Diana press her lips together in an irritated line. I felt a little bad that I couldn't be of more help, but the spirit didn't have a name, at least not that I knew of. Diana shook her head and leaned against the wall, crossing her arms and legs.
Well, we'll be able to expel it soon enough. I have Shadow in charge of figuring out how to sever the ties that spirit has on your body and forcing it free.
My mind instantly froze. My memory brought up images of the crying spirit and the tears it wept as I had entered my dreams. Would this new method hurt the spirit? Will it hurt the spirit? Diana stared in shock at my question.
You're concerned for the spirit's safety over your own.
We really hurt it last time. It was crying. Diana clicked her teeth and shook her head.
That spirit is clinging to you and using its emotions to make you feel sorry for it. It wants you to love it, so you will let it stay in your body.
Was that really the case? A child who was hurt cries mostly when they are seriously hurting, but what if Diana was right? What if it was trying to manipulate me? There were too many questions in my head. I shook out of my thoughts and continued to eat, finishing the pancakes. Diana pushed herself off the wall and began to leave the room, but stopped to look back at me with a concerned face.
Does the spirit ever enter your dreams?
Yes, it does. Diana stared at me for a moment, and most likely trying to form her thoughts into words before speaking. When she did, I couldn't stop myself from getting wide-eyed.
You know, there is a way we can stop the spirit from communicating with you until we can expel it.
I stared in shock. Why wasn't this brought up before? Diana grimaced at my expression inside.
The spirit is a child, and is most likely repulsed by romance and sex, am I correct?
Oh. Yeah, but what does that have to do with stopping it?
The spirit is feeding on and using your energy. The only way to stop it is to drain yourself of energy.
Oh. She wasn't serious, was she? She expected me to give Erik all of my energy all of the time? What about my training? Diana turned fully to me and crossed her arms.
Essentially, after training, give your remaining energy to your fiancé. Kiss, hug, fuck, it doesn't matter. As long as your energy is completely drained. You'll sleep, and because you'll have no energy, the spirit won't be able to appear in your dreams. You'll have an empty sleep.
Oh. It made sense, but at the same time I felt a little out of place. Erik needed my energy to survive, yes, but to give him all of my energy? Part of me felt a little excited to do it, while the other side of me felt that I was completely wrong to give energy for that reason. Diana shrugged, breaking my thoughts and making me give my full attention once again.
It's up to you. We should have the means to expel the spirit in a day or two.
Thank you. I was curious, however, why Diana was interested in helping me. She was already doing so much more for me and the others by helping me get back to the human world. Before Diana could turn to leave, I stood from my bed. Diana, why are you helping us with this anyway? Diana's gaze burned into mine as an expression softened. Something in her eyes showed a form of weakness, almost reflecting the eyes of her innocent child. What the...
You may not believe it, but I do actually enjoy aiding people. When I can, at least.
I could only stare at Diana in surprise. I could tell she was being genuine, just from the sound of her voice, and the look in her eyes made me somehow feel like crying. For some reason, I found myself dropping my empty plate on the floor and rushed to Diana, hugging her tightly. Diana tensed within my arms and stared wide-eyed at me. I couldn't stop myself from hugging her body.
What the?
I wasn't in control of myself. What was going on? Help me. Oh.
Dear, what are you?
I didn't speak again. I wanted to, but I couldn't. Was the spirit in control again? Diana finally relaxed in my arms and wrapped her arms around my form, petting over my hair gently.
How pitiful.
With each stroke, I felt anxiety wane and clear from my body. From where they came, I would never know, but I couldn't do anything but allow it to pass. Diana seemed to be some form of comfort for the spirit.
However you got into this body, we will free you, child.
I felt myself nod. However, I couldn't stop myself from feeling a strong energy pull from my body. Was Diana draining my energy? I better take it. She was taking my energy so that the spirit couldn't control me. I had to let her do it. As my body became weaker and weaker, the control of my body became more and more obtainable. Finally, my body felt light, but I found function in my nerves and limbs to function of my own coalition.
Are you yourself again?
Yes. Diana nodded before releasing me and looking down at me. To my surprise, her eyes were glowing a bright gold, probably from the energy it had taken from me. However, it had been done for me to regain my body. Diana's eyes returned to their normal red color as she smiled.
For now, rest a bit. You'll be able to regain some energy and be able to train as if nothing had happened. As long as you're not brimming with it, the spirit shouldn't be able to take control of you again.
I nodded in reply, finding myself step back and slip back into the bed behind me. I held my head, feeling slightly dizzy from the experience. The door opened and closed, so I assumed that Diana had left me alone. My heart felt at peace for some reason, even feeling as weak as I did. Was the spirit appeased with Diana's intervention? I couldn't see why it would have been.
She's very special. That's why.
The echo of the spirit's voice reverberated through my mind, but as I waited for it to explain, no further response came. I let out a sigh. The spirit was gone for now, and I had full control. For now, rest until training. I began to feel a bit elated at the idea of walking to train with Faye. The stress of the morning needed to be burnt away with a workout, and I knew that Faye would teach me something to take my mind off of it. It became like a game, a relief away from the reality of the world. I made my way to the grand hall and stopped at the doorway, looking and taking in the sight of Faye sleeping on the ground, spread eagle style. I took every ounce of control I had to not laugh hysterically at the sound Faye was releasing as they slept. To think such sounds came out of a cute-looking demon like Faye would seem rather bizarre and cartoon-like. Nevertheless, I knew I had to get started on training. The boys were most likely in the midst of their own training as I stood there, so I couldn't exactly spend time watching Faye snore. I stepped quietly into the room, drawing closer to Faye's body as I tried to think of how to wake them up. I don't know. I don't want to lose my... Would they hate me if I scare them? It was only going to be a little scare. A little fun never hurt anyone, right? I tiptoed further into the room, making sure not to wake up Faye as I approached them and circled around them. As I finally stood behind their head, I crouched down and cupped my hands together. Really? Okay. I can't. I'm really bad at that. I'm terrible. Faye jolted up like they had been zapped by a bolt of lightning and shot themselves into the air like a rocket before slamming their head into the ceiling.
Ow! 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 Ow!
I'm sorry. Oh my god, Faye! The temporary hilarity felt as I scared Faye quickly vanished. The sound of their head colliding with their ceiling echoed through the room, and the fairy in question quickly descended, holding their head. Faye, I'm so sorry!
It's okay. Ow. I needed to wake up anyways.
I finally floated to the level with my height, shaking their head and rubbing over where their head collided with the ceiling. I bit my lip and rubbed the back of my neck, feeling how very embarrassed and ashamed I was of what I chose to do. They wiggled their arms and let out a tired sigh before blowing raspberries with their mouth and slamming their hands against their cheeks.
I am awake!
I had to cover my mouth to stop the burst of laughter and that wanted to erupt from my gut at the exclamation. Faye became full of energy like it was the flip of a switch. I became mildly jealous of such a feat. Nevertheless, I was eager and ready for my next training session. I placed my arms at my sides and straightened my back, showing the posture of determination and attention. What will we be doing today? Bleh. Faye looked over at me, looking for some sort of answer in my eyes. Despite showing the sudden energy spark with the light bulb earlier, they remained silent for a moment. Were they not sure? I hoped that today wouldn't be going over the thorn bush again. As much as it was a cool trick, casting a thorn bush in existence from dawn to dusk was not as fun as many would imagine it to be, even with the hilarious breaks in between. Finally, a glimmer twinkled in Faye's eyes, making them grin from ear to ear at me.
I know what we're gonna do!
What? With a burst of energy, Faye shot themselves into the air and spun around before flipping upside down into the air towards me.
I'm gonna teach you how to fly!
Awesome. What? Fly? My mind completely blinked on itself. Fly? I was really going to be taught how to fly? I didn't have wings. How the heck was I going to do that? Faye nodded ecstatically before swooping down and flying around me.
It's so easy! You just need to imagine yourself floating in the air and boom! You'll be flying in no time!
I grimaced, watching Faye fly around me. I suddenly felt like I was in Peter Pan and had to think happy thoughts and go to the second star to the right to Neverland. I was just thinking that. Well, Faye was a fairy, so... I'm suddenly imagining you as Tinkerbell, Faye.
Tinker who?
Right. Demon World. Not Human World. Never mind. Faye stopped circling me and stared for a moment before shrugging and floating away from me, crossing her arms proudly and physically imitating Sergeant.
Now get those feet off the ground!
I looked down at the ground at my boot-covered feet. Making a thorn bush was one thing, making myself fly was another. I tried to imagine it, but there was no energy in my body that would respond to such a request. How the heck was I going to fly? Try and sprout wings. While I wasn't in a children's book, I was certain that logic would help me out. I had formed an orb in a thorn bush out of thin air. Wings should have been the same deal, right? I closed my eyes and relaxed my body, trying to focus on the sides of my spine. I had to think of anatomy. Where would my wings go? I concentrated on 2 points on my upper back, guiding my energy to those spots. I began to imagine what kind of wings I would spawn. Angelic, bat-like, the possibilities seemed endless. A wave of excitement ran through me. This was going to be so cool. However, after an almost moment of concentration, nothing seemed to occur. Aww, but I want to fly! I opened my eyes and looked down at myself. My feet were still on the ground and nothing changed with me. A flash of anger sparked within me. How difficult was it to lift off of the ground? How the heck can I fly? As soon as the word burst from my mouth, I shot my hands down in anger, only to be vaulted into the air by some sort of energy force beneath my feet. My body quickly shot up, defying gravity and sending me towards the ceiling. Okay, that's really... wow. Okay.
Whoa!
Faye quickly zipped over towards me and grabbed me, intercepting my quick ascent to the ceiling while holding me closer to them. It was like being held by a very strong child as their small frame barely lined up from my shoulder to my knee. It hit me for a split second. Faye was ridiculously small. Nevertheless, I gripped onto Faye, thankful that I wasn't going to crash into the wood above us, and looked around in awe. I was really in the air, flying or at least being held up by some sort of force. I could feel energy cycle around me and through my body, most likely keeping me afloat. I could fly! I looked at Faye with growing excitement of the situation. This was the best feeling ever! Faye grinned before slowly letting go of me, proving that they weren't holding me up and that I wasn't imagining anything. Holy crap! Pure elation rushed through me as I merely measured the distance between my feet and the floor. I was in the air and slowly bobbing up and down like Faye, floating freely against gravity. I did it!
You did it! You're flying!
I wheeled my body forward and feeling the air around me slowly guide me. In obedience, the energy in my body moved me through the space. It was incredibly odd, feeling the air slightly brush against my entire body, but I was indeed moving myself forward. A large grin graced my face as I began more determined with my mental commands. I flew forward towards Faye. Okay, I can't speak. I flew forward. I flew towards Faye and circled them before suddenly floating around the space. I felt as free as a bird, letting my mind naturally drive me in each direction that I wanted to go in.
There we go! You're getting it!
Whoa! Oh, wow. That's so... okay. Out of pure adrenaline, I rocked back and did a flip in the air before rocketing back forward and gliding over to turn away from the wall as I was quickly approaching. The rush of this new power became addicting and I wanted to do more with it. Still, I couldn't deny the effects using this power was putting me in. I could feel my energy quickly drain away the longer I remained in the air. A slight tingling sensation ran over my legs and hands, reminding me that I had a limited amount of energy. I mentally took note of it and floated over to Faye, putting a lid over my overenthusiastically from the new power and preparing myself to further instruction. Alright, I can fly now! What's next? Faye before planting their hands on their hips.
You really like flying, huh?
I couldn't help but nod. This was the most exciting thing I had done in the demon world thus far. It was like, well, someone doesn't know how to, pause. Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't help but nod. This was the most exciting thing I had done in the demon world thus far. It was like I was a superhero or something. I barely had to think about staying up to remain in the air, and it was increasingly making me giddy. They grinned before circling around me and gestured me to follow them.
Then let's have a little fun! Come on!
Within the blink of an eye, Faye zipped out of the room and into the hall. What? Hey! Not wanting to lose them, I willed myself forward, starting the chase. I quickly arced around the corner, locking Faye into my sights before building speed to cut at my increasing distance. Faye was ridiculously fast, and I barely managed to dodge the obstacles in our way, which included other demons and decor.
Whoa!
Ah! Sorry, not sorry!
Wow. Despite ducking and dodging each speed bump that's in the hall, I couldn't help but laugh at the thrill of the experience. They looked back at me and laughed as well, but suddenly dropped their expression.
Ah!
With an almost screeching halt, Faye turned their body back upright and stopped going forward, holding out their hands and stopping me as well. To my surprise, Faye managed to stop me without budging from their place, like they were a perfect brick wall. Why did Faye stop? I turned upright as well, suddenly confused. Faye, however, floated forward ever so slightly and looked into a nearby room, peeking over the corner of the barely open doorway. Out of my own curiosity, I did as well, feeling my energy die out and lower me to the stand on the floor at last. Oh. The room we were peeking into happened to be the war room, and we stared at the back of Diana's head as it looked down at the table in front of her, her hands gripping the edges like angry vices ready to break it. How did Faye know Diana was in here? And what the heck was Diana upset about?
How could a squad of scouts be found and slaughtered by a band of wild harpies?
Diana seemed to answer the question, but my mind began to try and imagine what she had said. Harpies existed? A squad of scouts were out and were killed? I looked up at Faye, seeing them press their lips together in worry as they stared at the succubus. As I turned to look back at Diana, however, I slightly gasped and covered my mouth as what I had laid my eyes upon. Around Diana's body was a black and purple fiery aura, flickering frighteningly in the air around her as she dug her nails into the wood of the table.
I'll have to search for it myself then. But where to start?
Before I could watch further, suddenly afraid of Diana, Faye grabbed my shirt and quickly pulled me away from the door, making sure to cover the hand I had placed over my mouth with their own for safety.
Let's go. We should get back to training.
Without even giving me an explanation or a chance to break free, Faye guided me back to the training hall. My mind began full of questions, but as we returned to the training hall, Faye became almost like a military sergeant. I had to practice flying and forming my thorn bush to build my stamina until the end of the day. By then, I was too exhausted to ask questions and just returned to my room. I would ask tomorrow. I entered my room thinking about what Diana had said to me that morning. If I had drained myself of energy, then the spirit wouldn't have the power to appear in my dreams. But did I want to do that? Erik appeared soon after, exhausted as ever. I continued to ponder as Erik sat down on my bed and stretched.
Another long day. How was your day, love?
My mind continued to ponder. I had to make a choice. Did I care if the spirit appeared in my dreams? Give your energy to Erik somehow. I needed rest without bizarre dreams. The spirit needed to stop controlling me and enticing me with its emotions. The question was how to give Erik my energy. I could easily sleep with him and give him my energy through sex, but I wanted our sex to be about the mood, not a means to an end. I looked to Erik and stared, taking in every detail of him. Erik?
What is it?
Kiss me. Erik seemed confused for a brief moment, but eventually smiled, crawling towards me. I leaned forward and smiled as Erik's lips gently pressed against mine. He tasted absolutely sweet against my lips. He was almost intoxicating, the kiss he was bringing me under. I found that it had not been fair to him, being that he was natural incubus with the ability to make me swoon. But every time he'd kiss me or just his ravishment on me made me forget the unfairness of the situation and allowed me to simply melt into the moment. I wrapped my arms around and pulled him close to me, causing us to fall back onto the bed with him over top of me. Slowly, everything became just about Erik and his love, letting me melt into the sensation we were exchanging. Erik, however, took the moment to pull away softly and stare down at me, looking for permission to continue in my eyes. I knew what I was getting into, so I smiled and pulled him back down to capture his lips again. It was sweet to know how considerate he was about the situation, but I was okay. I let myself go in the moment, closing my eyes and wrapping my legs around Erik. He seemed to get the picture, wrapping an arm around behind my arched back and scooting us up to lay with my head in the pillows. Our kiss only intensified as Erik slowly gripped my hips and ground himself between my legs, making me let out a gasp and moan against his lips, causing him to chuckle in reply. I could feel his desire to keep going clear as day between us. He became slow, almost tortuously so, as he began to strip himself and me down to become bare to each other. I felt the cool oops. Each kiss had planted on my skin caused a ripple of pleasure to flow through me. It was hard to hold back the moans wanting to escape me, but I allowed a quiet handful out to entice Erik to do more, go further with our foreplay. Looking up at him, his eyes began to glow a familiar gold tint, allowing the fire within my core to ignite and burn heavily. I felt my body become only filled with thoughts of Erik and screaming his name as passionately as I could. The entire castle would know exactly who was receiving my love and whose love I was taking during that night. Okay. There wasn't a need for words to be exchanged as Erik's slow smile grew into a passionate and lustful smirk. His tongue memorized every sweet spot in my body, and he used his knowledge to make me rise beneath him, ushering me to beg for more. My body was slowly pleading with my mind to let me release my desire and craving out so Erik could satisfy me. However, I wanted to fully give everything, and that meant taking things slow and steady. Erik seemed to understand, and he slowly built our foreplay up as to where we couldn't even take it anymore, and all we could think was about making love. As we finally gave in, we were both gifted with a swift gasp of pleasureful moans at the sensation. The air was hot and steamy as we panted and rode out our lovemaking, becoming lost in each other's eyes as my mind began to recount everything I loved about Erik. He was devoted, delicate, but at the same time, he was everything my body desired. I could only imagine the same thoughts running through his mind as he captured my lips in his and followed my moans as they rushed out of my throat. As we apexed, our fingers dug into each other, desperate to ride through our high and simmer into a gorgeously placed afterglow. Our breaths and heartbeats synced as we were left staring deep into each other's eyes, exhausted but full of love. Oh, I love you, my prince. The feelings of joy that rushed through me caused me to nuzzle into Erik's warm embrace, making him chuckle and kiss over my head despite being tired of himself. Still, the aura around our bodies was perfect for peaceful passage to sleep. It was surprisingly a peaceful night. And I guess I'll leave it here for today. Yeah, that's happening. I'll put this here just in case. And I'll put it here, N6. Yes. But anyways, that's that. Yeah. I'm gonna go eat breakfast now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!